Hello, assalamu alaikum, namaste, sasriyakal, or Anjali Mudra. Welcome to the program The Whole Truth. This program we have put together specially to discuss the latest controversy about the Labour Party position on Kashmir. And this controversy obviously has come about after the statement issued by the new Labour leader, Keir Starmer, in response to a letter by the Hindu Forum of Britain. So, in that letter, um, he what he said is seen by many as repositioning of the Labour Party as a position or stand on Kashmir, and that was approved by the last Labour Party conference in September 2019. So before the main purpose here today is to basically analyze what did he say and what was there before, and what was the political position of Labour Party in the conference resolution or conference motion, and then what was different, what the then Labour Party chair Ian said about to clarify the position in response to the reaction by Indian community at that time, and now what did the current leader said. So this is the primary purpose of this special show, to put before our viewers what exactly the difference between three positions, and then obviously think about what we should be doing to deal with this situation. What are the best way forward for our communities here in Britain? Obviously, particularly British Kashmiri community, because it is mainly them who are victims of the situation that exists in their country back home, the state of Jammu Kashmir, that is divided since 1947 under the control of India and Pakistan. But of course, we as British citizens, we are living in the same country, and we have to take that uh, fact into account, and in that context, then we can formulate a way forward. So that is the kind of um, purpose of today's show, as if you want to say. So we will discuss three positions, like I said. The conference motion that was passed in 2019, September 2019, and then chair's clarification that came out in November 2019, and then the current statement by the present leader last week. Just hold on a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so these are the three positions we will discuss today, and let me show you each one of them, and then I think we will be in a better position to discuss it. So let's see first. Let's see the statement made by the current leader, Mr. Starmer. So this is what he said about the political position on Kashmir. Obviously, he wrote a letter, and in that letter, he wrote a lot of other um, um, lot of, he wrote a lot of other things to um, make relationship with the Indian community better or improve relationships and address their complaints and grievances, or what, obviously he was responding to a letter by a Indian organization in Britain, so obviously he was addressing their concerns. But what is relevant to us here today is what he said about Kashmir. So he said, in terms of Kashmir, I am clear that any constitutional issues in India are a matter for the Indian Parliament, and Kashmir is a bilateral issue for India and Pakistan to resolve peacefully. So that is what he said. And so he said it basically, he said it is um, for India and Pakistan to resolve it peacefully. It is a bilateral issue between them two countries. And so, what was in the motion which was approved by a Labour Party conference in September 2019? Let's have a look what was included there about the political position of party on Kashmir. This is what it said. It included in the motion, like in that letter, there were a lot of other things in that motion too, about human rights, violation, and all that. And but political position was this: accept that Kashmir is a disputed territory, and the people of Kashmir should be given the right to self-determination in accordance with the UN resolutions. So, in that resolution, or that motion, it was recognized that it is a disputed territory, and the people of Kashmir, and Kashmir here is meant, when it said Kashmir internationally, it always means the Jammu and Kashmir, and the state should be given, the people of Kashmir should be given the right to self determination in accordance with the UN resolutions. That's very important. Right of self determination in accordance with the UN resolutions, because in the Kashmiri context, it's very, very important. And this, when this motion was passed, there was a outcry from Indians in Britain within Labour Party and outside. And if you go through a lot of reactions expressed by different Indians, it was more to do with the what was in this motion about the human rights violation India is committing since 1888, 89, and also because in that motion uh, it was it come across that it is India that is the problem in Kashmir, and within Labour Party there were some voices that the rhetoric against India was out of place, and the language, even the Labour leader at that time, um, Jeremy Corbyn, said that the language of the motion was not appropriate, which shows that perhaps he was not able to read the motion before it was pushed through. It was emergency motion, of course. So that is that, and that is why then the chair of party at that time had to come with a clarification, um, to explain to Indians that party's position is not really changed, and um, so what it seems like I have not got the party chair's um, statement to show you, but I have to read it, so I'll read it for you. Ian Lowry, chairman Labour Party, said this in November 2019. The Kashmir is a bilateral matter for India and Pakistan to resolve together by means of a peaceful solution and respect their, Kashmiris' right to have a say in their own future. So in this one, he says Kashmir is a bilateral matter for India and Pakistan to resolve together by means of a peaceful solution and respect Kashmiris' right to have a say in their future. So these are the three positions which Labour has adopted in last 6 months, or you know. So that is um, the position. And now, sorry, I have to operate all them myself, and I'm not really good at that. But anyway, so these are the three positions. Now, instead of me um, thinking the what each position means, I thought it was good idea to send around three positions to different friends of Kashmiri background uh, in different places, in different regions, mainly in Britain, but also people back home in Kashmir, the Indian side and Pakistani side, and different Kashmiris here in Britain and in Europe and other countries. But I mean, I have received some responses which I will read to you, and then we will discuss it further. And so these responses from different people. First, let's see what they say about the current position or the statement by uh, Labour leader Mr. Keir Starmer. So about this, his statement, the responses I received, they said, does not speak of Kashmiri aspirations or self-determination. It does not speak of Kashmiri's aspirations or self-determination. Shifts from party position, which, from existing party position, it is a shift. And it negates or excludes the people of Kashmir, and it ignores self-determination and disputed nature of Kashmir, ignores its status at the UN, and one respondent said it is a sellout position. So that was the Mr. Starmer's statement. And now the other one, party chair's statement, which was issued to clarify party position for Indian audience. And the respondent said that it emphasizes bilateralism, but recognizes Kashmiri's right to decide their political future. So it emphasizes bilateralism. It says that it is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan, but Kashmiri should have say in what our decision is going to be made about the future status of Kashmir. And one respondent said it is the liberal centrist position. And another said it is inclusive and very clearly recognizes Kashmiris as party in the dispute. And then about the Labour Party's motion, one respondent said it recognizes self-determination explicitly, but it recognizes restricted self-determination as it is to be exercised with reference to UN resolutions, which does not include independence as an option. Another respondent said it seems pro-Pakistani stance in that UN resolutions, India and or Pakistan. The choice is limited to India or Pakistan. It excludes Kashmiri people's aspirations if they are for independence. And another respondent said it is progressive than the other two. So these are the different positions which people took who responded to my request when I sent them all three positions and asked what they think. So now the next question is what I think about it. And I particularly, I think I agree with most of the respondents that if we look at three positions, the first, the the conference motion certainly mentions the right to self-determination. That is the only motion that mentions the right to self-determination, and of course it refers to UN. That means the issue is at UN, and it asks the party to accept that this is a territorial dispute, and people should make a decision about it. But by mentioning UN resolution that self determination, the right of self determination should be given as per UN resolutions, it actually limits that right, and it negates it by doing that. Because in UN resolution, the right is limited to India or Pakistan. So Kashmiri people will have, if there is a plebiscite according to UN resolutions, the Kashmiris, state subjects in the state of Jammu Kashmir, will vote that if they want to join India or they want to go with Pakistan. There is no option of independence if they want to. And interestingly, the option of independence was there in the resolution, in one of the resolution which was passed on 13th of August 1948 by the United Nations Commission of India and Pakistan. And in that, it was very clearly said the future status of Jammu Kashmir will be decided by its people in a fair and free referendum. However, that option was taken out in the next resolution, which was passed on 5th of January 1949. Why that was taken out and on whose request? That is a story I will tell at some other time. Because today, if I go into that, it will become too complicated. So I will, and plus, I want to have very, very concrete evidence uh, before I indulge into that debate. So, so now, when my position is that we should demand self-determination, and that should be our reaction, because so far the reaction from different people is that we should have the original motion which was approved in a conference restored, or that should be the policy of Labour Party, and there is a petition doing rounds asking for that, and quoting what I said here, that Kashmiri should be given the right to self-determination according to United Nations resolutions. This is the petition going around, and people are signing it, and they're saying that fine. I mean, end of the day, uh, people have their own, free choice. Whatever they want to support for, but I want to make it clear that in that petition and in the motion which was approved, there is no self determination. The word self determination is certainly there, but soon you link it with United Nations resolutions on Kashmir, you are negating it. So either it was, I don't know, maybe I can't understand the reason why people, uh, when they drafted that resolution, why they had to put UN resolutions in a, because when UN resolutions were passed, The Kashmiri representation was not there. It was between India and Pakistan. And also, if we read the two latest reports by United Nations Human Rights Commission, in its recommendations, both reports in their recommendation very clearly say that Kashmiri should be, India and Pakistan should respect the right of Kashmiri people to self determination as protected in the international law. This is said in one report, and in the other report, it say respect Kashmiri's right to self determination as per United Nations Charter. So, in United Nations Charter, of course, self determination means the people make a free choice. If they want to go with India, if they want to go with Pakistan, if they want to stay independent. So, that right is always self determination is always unfettered, unlimited, unconditional. That is only then it is self determination. If it is limited at that very by that very condition, it ceases to be self determination anymore. So in the case of Kashmir, Kashmiris, according to UN resolutions, they have a right to accession. And if people actually want that, then they should write that in the motion and then ask for voting. So either this was ignorance or it was a manipulation. And I think people should um, really come out, and if they want accession, right of accession, then they should write that. The Kashmiri people should have that. But if they want right of self-determination, then you don't need to link it with the United Nations resolutions, because United Nations framework you can use, but those resolutions certainly, that choice certainly is not enough. And there is a huge number of Kashmiris who don't want to be part of Pakistan, who don't want to be part of India. So therefore, where is their right, in those United Nations resolutions? Therefore, that is so we should demand for self-determination, but unrestricted and unconditional. United Nations resolutions, there is the demand of self-determination according to United Nations resolutions is contradictory, because there is no self-determination in United Nations resolutions. So therefore, that is very, very important that our people understand it, and particularly our leadership, the MPs and the people in different towns and cities who have invested a huge amount of time and energy, and most of them are really doing they are very sincere, and they want this issue to be resolved, and they have mobilized and engaged so many British people from different communities beyond Kashmiris. There are a lot of Indians, there are a lot of Pakistanis, there are wider British communities who are supporting, and the Kashmiri people's right to decide their future, and who are standing with Kashmiris against all the human right violations committed by predominantly by Indian government, and particularly after 5th of August um, 2019. So yes, the people are doing a lot of work, but if you are doing all that work and you are mobilizing people, and now British Kashmiris are in a very, very difficult position, because it seems that Labour Party leadership has decided to uh, not to support the Kashmiri's unconditional right to self-determination, but to go for bilateralism. So, which of course did not work for 70 years, but we will come to that. But the main point is that we should um, demand for self-determination, but not according to United Nations resolutions. Um, and here, I think the first, the next step for British Kashmiris after this situation is to form an independent and inclusive voice of British Kashmiris here in Britain. That is very, very important. And we should, form this platform and, take our campaign forward on the basis of justice and inclusion. That means, um, back home, it means that we should not be selective about human rights violations and other rights of people. We should be inclusive no matter who violates the right of Kashmiri people in the state of Jammu Kashmir, or in which part. We as British Kashmiris should be honest enough and should be courageous enough and truthful enough that we speak against any violation anywhere, rather than be selective that is a Muslim who was violated, or was a Hindu, or was it in the Pakistani administered part, or was it in the Indian administered part. I call Indian administered part occupied part now, because they have violated all the UN given mandates, or whatever justification they had, according to United Nations resolutions, to administer that part till the final decision was made through a referendum. So after that, they have their, the BJP government have uh, changed their position in Kashmir. So they are certainly an occupying authority, whether that is, that's how I see it. But uh, even then, for the diaspora here in Britain, for us, we should not be selective about um, you know um, the situation in the state. That is very, very important if we want to be really, if we want to engage all those people who are for justice and fairness and inclusion, and not only certain people who can support certain people on the basis of religion or ideology, or this or that. So if we want to make it a, inclusive public campaign, then we have to be inclusive ourselves. And so what should be our demand? And I think this is beautifully written by a friend who said that w- in that motion, the demand, if what our included the political demand which I mentioned above, if it was amended and it say that we demand unrestricted and true self determination, um, and that demand, I'm sure all the progressive Indians and Pakistanis will support as well. They always did. And this I learned this a phrase here in Britain, that Kashmiri should be given the right to self determination, including and with the right to independence. So, right of self determination, when we mention, when we demand in relation to Kashmir, we should always say that including and with the right to independence, because right of self determination is reduced to right of accession in relation to Kashmir by India and Pakistan, particularly by Pakistan, because India says we don't, Kashmir is integral part, and it's our bilateral issue, and we will, internationally they say it's bilateral issue, internally they say it is our internal matter. And the only bilateralism about is that the areas which are under the occupation of Pakistan, but internationally they say it is bilateral issue. But Pakistan say we support right to self determination, but actually whenever they say that, There is somehow they put this according to UN resolutions, and that means they support Kashmiri's right to accession and not self-determination. And here in Britain, I think our demand should be inclusion in par with the as like other British communities, including Indians and Pakistanis. We should be included as a community equal to all other communities in Britain. So these should be our kind of two demands, and all organizations should come together and work. I mean, obviously, we have people, who are doing um, their job very well in Parliament, in House of Lords, in other areas of Britain, and we are part of Indian community here. We are part of Pakistani community here. We are part of all other communities here as British. So we have to have interaction and dialogue with all the other communities. And within Labour Party, I think, I mean, I'm not a member of Labour Party, but people who are, and people particularly who are in leadership roles, they should have a wider discussion within the party. These, mean, maybe I'm an idealist, and the real parties are not like I think they are, or as they appear to people like myself who are not inside. But if if people genuinely want to address this issue, and they don't want to bring that communal approaches of South Asia towards Kashmir here in Britain, then I think they have to be serious about it, and have a dialogue with all the communities, and particularly those people who don't think that um, religious fanaticism of any form can bring peace to Kashmir or to Kashmiris or resolve this issue. I think they should sit down and make it very very clear that yes, Kashmiri people's right to self determination must be accepted, but not on the basis of religions or here the people are, who are campaigning on that this is Hindus issue or is a Muslim issue. Yes, there are Hindus and Muslims are living there, and yes, there are Hindus and Muslims are living in Britain, and their religious right must be respected. But driving politics through religion, or with the religion engines, or with the religious force, that has never brought any construction anywhere, and it won't bring any construction here in Britain. So yes, respecting each other's religious um, affiliations and religious beliefs is must. We all must do that, but driving our politics through religion, that is not going to bring any good for anybody. That's my personal political understanding and belief. So I think we should not fall for narrow and hateful and emotional um, methods or strategies or thinking, but we should think to be more inclusive, and have a dialogue with all viewpoints, and then come up with something which is inclusive and which can engage all people who are all parties, I would say, and here in Britain, all communities. So um, that is my conclusion, and the final word is that there is very little difference in all these three positions. Yes, there is words and terminology. You can say that there is a different terminology, but primarily all three are asking for bilateralism. because United Nations resolutions don't accept Kashmiris as a party. It's a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. Only they say that there is a still dispute. And when the party chair says that it is a bilateral issue, it it is bilateral between India and Pakistan. That means it is disputed. And when the current leader says it is bilateral issue, he's saying the same thing. Now people say that, oh, why didn't he mention the human rights violation and all that? He very clearly said that we do stand for the protection of human rights. Whether they do or not, that's a different thing. But he did say that very openly. But he won't say, in this letter, he won't talk about the violation by Indian government in Kashmir, because he's trying to engage them. And that doesn't mean I agree with what he said. But what I am saying is that if you look at things closely, they're not very much different. So if you really are for Kashmiri's right, then you demand unconditional right of self-determination, and um, um, and demand the human rights violation must be stopped in all parts of Kashmir. And then, as a community, lead the campaign, and all those fair people and people who are for justice from the Indian and Pakistani community, they should support. If they genuinely for the Kashmiri people's rights, then they should give unconditional support to right of self-determination. And those who are there, whose positions are to occupy Kashmir or to capture Kashmir or to silence Kashmir, they will not be pleased with anything but um, you know um, that we surrender our rights, and we become Indians or Pakistanis, and we do not ask for our rights. So obviously that is not the option. We have to carry on our campaign, but on the basis of justice and inclusion and peace and democracy. And people's, we have to convince people that this is our right. And what people do inside Kashmir, obviously there are different conditions in all regions. And we don't know how. I mean, obviously the things are really bad there. In last 2 weeks there are over 20 people killed. So things are getting bad, and on the line of control, India and Pakistan are firing at each other and killing people. So and on top of that, this lockdown for corona, uh, it's a double lockdown there, particularly in the valley and surrounding areas. So it is not very easy situation. It's not simple situation. But here in Britain, I think we have to be more careful, and our position, our demand should be more inclusive, rather than this side or that side. And if we and this is not only about Labor Party. I think other party people in other parties should also raise this issue. But that is only possible if we have a British-wide, British Kashmiri platform, and independent platform, not manipulated by this or that particular government or ideologies. So I think that is the way forward. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. And let me see if there are any comments. Yeah, of course, Labour Party or no party can ignore their voters. Voters are the target. Votes are the whole point of being in election politics. So yes, certainly. But um, if there are Kashmiris, then there are obviously Indians as well. So, and there are other communities. So, obviously, this is something which people within the party have to, think about. Just not name, but Facebook user. Yeah, of course, all parties want, more members, more voters. And Labour Party historically was better for human rights and for supporting different campaigns across the world, and relatively, uh, better. But obviously, things are changing, and particularly this leadership is a huge shift, and a lot of things are expected which were taken for granted historically, and things are changing. So that is why it is important that we, rather than being becoming some political football again, we should be thinking independently, and engaging with all the forces on equal terms, and have our own rights at heart, and negotiate on that basis. But that is something politicians obviously can do. We can only talk about it. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I hope it helped some people to understand it better. And we will soon, hopefully, I will have some Labour Party politicians, Liberal Party politicians, and Tory Party politicians to talk about what they think is the best way forward, and how this issue can be addressed. um, Take care. Bye bye.